Good evening. Welcome to Suits and Sneakers. Be like the dog. No, just kidding. So, welcome to Suits and Sneakers. I'm Ran Neu Ner. As you guys all know, that's Mark Sham. Big round of applause to Mark Sham. I've watched this guy work for 4 months, day and night, work so hard to create a free event. The guy spent $1 million to make sure that you guys get a free event. Now, the truth is, I hate that motherfucker. Because he walked into my office one day, he didn't tell you the full story. He walked into my office and he said to me, "Look, I do this gig called Suits and Sneakers. Do you want to come and talk?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, why not? Another gig, let's talk." He didn't tell me there were going to be 3,000 people at his event. He didn't tell me that he's going to put me on a stage with a client of mine, Kai Langer, with a lady who's going to live in Mars. And to top it all off, what he was going to do was he was going to import a speaker from the United States, a guy who's the most interesting guy I've ever heard in my life. So thanks, Mark. So to make matters worse, I call him, I say to him, "Mark, what should I talk about? You're putting me on stage in front of 3,000 people. What can I talk about that's going to appeal to 3,000 people?" And he said, "Look, I don't really care. Don't use PowerPoint and don't go over 30 minutes. I'm using PowerPoint. I'm going to try and keep it under 30 minutes. So I racked my brain and I thought, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to keep you guys entertained, keep everybody here entertained for 30 minutes? And I thought, logically, the first thing I should speak about is the future of marketing. Because everyone knows I'm a marketer. And I'm a marketing expert. And I speak about the future of marketing as if I know what's going on in marketing. But the truth is, I think that would bore you guys. So then I thought, maybe I should talk about why I sold my business. Everybody knows that last year I sold my business in the biggest media and marketing transaction on the African continent ever. Now, I could combine the two. I could combine the future of marketing with why I sold my business. And I'm giving you guys a few hints. What I'm actually trying to say is that I believe, and I'm not going to dig into it tonight because I'm really going to piss off the people that bought my business. But I believe everything in this room stays in this room, right? But I believe that in the future there may not be marketing. So then I racked my brain and I thought, okay, I run a big business. I employ about 1,100 staff. I know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about leadership. I'm going to teach you guys a whole lot of stuff about leadership so that I can shortcut your leadership journey. And I started writing the talk. And it turned out that my leadership talk started to sound more like this, like leader shit. And why leaders actually fail. Because I haven't done a very good job. So, one morning at 6:30 in the morning, this is the part he doesn't tell you, Mark Sham sends me a WhatsApp, a panicked WhatsApp. "Buddy, are you up?" "Yes, Mark, yeah, I'm up. What's up?" He says, "Listen, I'm supposed to open my incubator tonight. I had a speaker booked, and the speaker cancelled. Do you mind filling in for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, Mark, I love being second choice. Let's do it. Why not?" So, I do the talk for him. It's about 60 or 70 people. And it turns out that it's an amazing, amazing, amazing talk. The next morning, I get emails, I get SMSs, I get WhatsApp. One of the mails said, "Your talk made me cry." I didn't mean to make anyone cry. Anyway, so Mark phones me and says, "Listen, I don't know what you're going to talk about. I don't know what you plan to talk about at Suits and Sneakers. But I can tell you there's only one thing that you should actually talk about. And that's your story. Tell the story about how this short little Jewish immigrant became South Africa's Entrepreneur of the Year. Because that story is an incredible story." So, what I did was I created a talk. I created a talk called Be Like the Dog. I was going to call the talk Don't Buy My Book. And the truth is, you can't buy my book because it's not on sale. And there are 2 reasons why I'm not going to write a book and I'm not going to put a book on sale. The first reason is the shit that I'm going to give you guys here tonight, you cannot learn in a book. Either you're going to go through these life lessons yourself, or you're going to meet someone like me and you're going to spend hours and hours and hours talking to someone like me who's been through it. But this stuff, isn't available in the book. So, like all books, I want to dedicate my book. I want to dedicate my book to all the people that I pissed off or upset or broke along the way with my obsessive nature and my obsessiveness towards brilliance or nothing, the mantra which I live by. And you couple that with my immature management style, and as I walked in, I saw some people that worked for me in the past. Speak to them afterwards, they'll tell you about it. So I want to dedicate this talk, my book, to all those people that I pissed off or upset along the way. So I'm going to start this book or this journey from the end.
We woke up early, we worked till late. It requires tenacity.
Everything that they sort of touch turns to gold.
I think Ran is a ruthless operational gangster.
In this place, we deliver brilliance or nothing.
Our view is that no is the beginning of a negotiation, not the end of one.
At some point, the thing became a monster.
Masazi Ran Neu Ner and Gil Avet amadoda amabini anqandilili kweze media ne-advertising. Ukhumbule ke uGil noRan bangaphansi kweminyaka eyi-40 bobabili.
Whereabouts did you meet up?
High school, same class.
Gil and I have been mates in school, and we've had businesses since school days. And in the businesses, we had different shareholdings and different ideas. And we realized one thing along the way, that as long as we're equally aligned, then whatever we do is in the best interest of both of us.
We've got an incredible sense of competition, which we've always had since we met.
Not so long ago, they had hit rock bottom amongst the wreckage of a failed idea.
I think it's the ability to make it through. And again, I bring it back to the partnership. Gil and I were partners. Every time I wanted to throw in the towel, he said, hang in there, one more month, buddy. And every time he wanted to throw in the towel, I said, come on, hang in there. And eventually we made it.
The idea came from Ran's first-year law student girlfriend, who was doing part-time work as a promoter. These things never really just get planned, they just happen.
Even if you asked us after we discovered the promotions industry whether we were going to play in this industry, we probably would have said no. But again, like all good entrepreneurial stories, we found an opportunity and we grabbed it by the horns.
Lastly, in a word, how do you guys want to be remembered as entrepreneurs?
Guys who care about what they do, guys who leave a legacy, and guys who care about the people that they work with most importantly. It's all about the people. It always is.
Today I run a venture capital fund called Shits and Giggles. It allows me to have a lot of fun while making money and helping young entrepreneurs. I also run the Creative Council Group. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Creative Council Group, but we are the biggest marketing agency group on the African continent. I've had a hell of a ride. Last year, we won the All Africa Business Leaders Award for South Africa. We won the All Africa Business Leaders Award for Africa. We won South Africa's Entrepreneur of the Year. We won Sanlam and Business Partners Entrepreneur of the Year. In fact, tomorrow night, I'm nominated as the finalist for National Business Leader of the Year and National Entrepreneur of the Year. And next week, I'm nominated as a finalist in the exceptional category in the World Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. It's been a hell of a ride. During this ride, I've been on the cover of every single magazine that you can imagine, from Entrepreneur Magazine to Financial Times to you name it, we've been on it. Even Black Magazine. Yeah. Most recently, we've been on the cover of Destiny Magazine in the November issue. If you're going to store, you can buy it now. Please buy it, because no one else is buying it. So get this. Last year, I was invited by the state president, by Mr. Jacob Zuma, as his honorary guest to the State of the Nation address. Okay, now, let me explain to you how this happens. You arrive at the airport thinking that someone, like an Uber, is going to pick you up. A convoy picks you up. You've got your own bodyguard, and he doesn't let you out of his sight like those movies. He walks around, okay, he's here, he's here. So I don't know if you guys remember, but last year during the State of the Nation, there were a whole lot of riots. So I made him take me to Parliament, and then he kept me in the car and said, look, sir, you can't actually leave the car. And I said, what if I do? And I got out the car and I started running, and before you know it, there were 3 bodyguards going, okay, he's going left. I felt like a celebrity. But I spend most of my time with the president's friends. He invited me for lunch, but I was spending time with these guys. So the truth is, I could say I'm living the dream, but that would be an understatement because my life has surpassed every single dream that I ever had when I was a child. Every single dream that I ever had. Today, I run the coolest agency in South Africa.
We live in a world powered by ideas, where nothing is impossible and everything is probable. Ideas can fuel our collective consciousness, feed our souls, and define our humanity. Or they simply do nothing. Because an idea is only an idea until you make it happen.
Imagine a world where the Great Pyramid of Giza was still just a rough plan on a weathered piece of papyrus, where the model for the Wright brothers flying machine was collecting dust in an attic, or where the iPhone proposal was stuck in a drawer, awaiting approval. You see, ideas are nothing until they realize their full potential, until they actually happen.
Why do so many ideas simply never happen?
Ideas need to be crafted, nurtured, protected, fought for, and happen has to be built into their very DNA. At the Creative Council, we are in the business of making ideas that happen. Because when great ideas happen, they have the power to change the way people act or transact, the power to inspire them, and the power to connect them to the brands that we serve.
Every day, an army of like-minded individuals go to work at our offices around the country and on the continent with one goal: make the ideas that change how people act or transact happen. From client service to creative, from social media to field marketing, from brand partnership to mass market expertise, from events to consumer product endorsement, all our businesses and all our people are dedicated to bringing the ideas that work to life and making them happen for our clients.
We love a challenge, and we're experts in taming wild ideas, managing psychotic timelines, and making every cent of a budget work its hardest.
So what does it take to make ideas happen?
You need an idea-making factory, one specifically geared to deliver an idea from its birth to the moment it connects with the consumer and beyond.
It's a factory where we create with the passion of artists, evaluate with the scrutiny of chartered accountants, and execute with the speed of startups.
Everything is process-driven and automated to deliver end-to-end. Because we know one thing's for sure: some ideas are destined to never happen, and others are destined for greatness.
People don't always remember what we say, but they seldom forget how we make them feel.
Are your ideas destined to be game changers? Will they inspire your consumers to feel, to move, to share, and ultimately to change the way they act or transact?
At the Creative Council, every idea is guided across our specialized group of companies, all driven to make it happen. We crack it, we strategically drive it across social media, connect it to the mass market, find the right partners to support it, launch it internally and externally, activate it and manage it end-to-end with our field marketing specialists. Because an idea is only an idea
until we make it happen.
And I work in the most incredible environment you can ever imagine. That's our offices, guys. I also get to do something that I'm really, really passionate about, something that I love, and that's giving back. Last year, I started an incubator with one purpose: to create transformation in the advertising and marketing industry. You see, in our industry, of the top 10 companies, not a single one is black-owned. And so instead of talking, I decided to do something about it, and I started an incubator where on one condition, on the condition that you remain 100% black-owned from the time you enter till the time you leave, we will give you everything that you need: mentorship, money, infrastructure, access to clients, access to networks. It's a real passion project of mine. You know, when I was young, I had a dream that I'd build a big business and I'd sell a big business. And before I was 40 years old, I sold my business in the biggest media and marketing transaction ever to take place on the continent to the Publicis Group. The magazines and the tabloids mentioned that we sold it for between 1 and 1.5 billion rand. Now, under contract, I can't really comment. What I can say is you can kind of believe what you read in the press. So, why am I here? Well, let me tell you why I'm not here. I'm not here to give you guys fancy quotes that you can post on your Facebook walls to inspire your friends that need motivation. I got a friend, and what he says, how come it's never the ones that are successful that post these messages? So I'm not going to give you any of those. I'm here for a very simple reason. I'm just like you guys. I've been on the most incredible journey that you could ever imagine. And I want as many people to go through the same journey and have the same fun that I've had, and hopefully to have more success than I've had with less hurdles along the way. And that's why I'm here. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to tell you my story very briefly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys 5 takeouts or 5 things that I learned along the way that hopefully you guys can apply in your lives, and you can shortcut and not make the same mistakes that I had. So before I start my story, I want to get rid of all the excuses, okay? So, sorry, I know it might be too soon. So the reason why I say this is because typically when I speak to entrepreneurs or when I speak to people and I say to them, why aren't you successful? They give me a whole lot of excuses. And when they look at me, they say to me, but you never had that shit. So let me go through my life story with you. I grew up in a home where only my dad worked as a salaried employee, so one income stream from a salaried employee who never ever made director. He had 5 kids, 5 boys, and his main aim was to put us all through a good education, through a private school. So you can imagine that in my house, branded clothing didn't exist. Trips overseas were something that we read about or saw on TV, but there was not a chance that we could go on a trip overseas. My dad had 5 kids on one salaried employee salary. You know what that is? That's pictured, because I was as thick as pictured. If you don't believe me, that's my school report. Okay, if you can't see, look. Okay? Now, there's only one guy that I know that was dumber than me at school. But hold on, here's the best part. I applied for his job last week. No jokes, there's a letter. SABC Chief Executive Officer, we acknowledge receipt of your application for the above position. Wouldn't it be funny if I got his position? I tell you, the first thing I'd do is kill the choir. University. My dad had 5 kids. There was no way he could put us all through private school and pay through university. You want university, you pay for it yourself. And that's exactly what I did. I started a business and I put myself through university. So no more excuses about people going, I can't succeed because I can't go to university. Hey, I went. I paid my way. Let me know when these pictures get too much. So, my dad was an immigrant he didn't grow up in South Africa and have a big network. He was a salaried employee, so he never had a network around him. So I never had a network that I could tap into. I often hear people going, yeah, but you had a network, so it was easy for you. I didn't have a network. In fact, I'll tell you guys a story. When I was going to get my one and only job ever, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, I begged my dad to help me get a job. Phone your friends, like all my buddies' parents phoned their friends, and help me get a job. And he said, look, I can't help you. I don't know anyone. So I didn't have a network, and I had no favors. This stuff's going on DSTV. So, funding. I never, ever, ever had funding. Not for any of my ventures. No one in my family could give me funding. And I'm going to tell you a good funding story, but I'm going to wait to leave it towards the end. I had no funding for any of my ventures. So you take all that, let's wipe out the excuses. I'm thick as pictured. I paid my own way through varsity. I had no favors and I've got no network. So how the hell did I get you? Let me tell you how I got you. I was like the dog. I knew I was going to make money from a very, very young age. In fact, when I was 3.5 years old, I learned to use a pair of scissors. and my dad threw away an old calendar. So what did I do? I grabbed the calendar from the bin, cut out the pictures, and went door to door, selling the pictures that I cut out from the calendar. Came back a few hours later, my mom was there, my gran was there, my aunt was there, there was a policeman there, missing child report. Hey, but I had a pocket full of money, and that's all that counted. My entrepreneurial spirit never died, and I went right through school, and I ran a whole lot of entrepreneurial ventures. Some I'm going to tell you about. I had a sandwich exchange where you paid R5 a month to bring your own sandwiches, put them in the pool, and take someone else's sandwiches. I was solving a big problem. Yeah. There's another venture which I'm going to mention but not talk about. When we were at school, pornography magazines weren't legal yet. Let's move on. So after school, I started my first real business, a business called A&R Wholesalers. Amir, my friend, and Ran Wholesalers, because we were very creative when it came to names. And we used to import car radios from Pretoria to Joburg. It was great. And we used to sell them to our buddies. And then something amazing happened. The electronics industry transformed into the cell phone industry. So the cell phone got launched. And all the guys that were importing electronics started to import cell phones. And I don't know how many of you remember, but in the old days, if you wanted a cell phone, you had to go to game, you had to wait in a 2-kilometer long queue that went around game, you'd have to give them your stuff, they'd vet your stuff, and 3 days later you'd have to come back and see whether you got a cell phone or not. And I thought, this is crazy. So I started South Africa's first you ring, we bring cell phone company. And I took out an advert in the Star newspaper every day, and I had a great office at Nino's in Rosebank. I was 21 years old, I had 22 people working for me, and I used to sit at a coffee shop all day with the boot of my car open, dispatching cell phones. And then something amazing happened. A guy came to me and he said, I want to buy your business. I said, yeah, that's cool. How much money are you giving me? He said, I'm going to give you $1 million in cash. I was like, hey, 21 years old, $1 million, bring it. So I took it. And I took that R1 million, and I went to make right all the wrongs of the past. Branded clothing, trips overseas. I was going to get the world back. It took me about 3 months to blow the $1 million. And I got back to Joburg, and I was sitting on a couch, and I was wearing a high pair of platform shoes. I'm going to show you a picture in a second. We're going to skip it very quickly. And I had nothing to do because I signed this document called a restraint of trade. Don't ever sign a restraint of trade. It basically means that the only thing you know how to do, you're not allowed to do anymore. So a friend of mine walks in and he says to me, listen, he says, geez, those are incredible shoes. Brilliant. Got back on a plane, flew to Israel, found the manufacturers of the shoes. Okay, it's not as bad as it looks because in Israel, frik actually means freak. Okay, so freak. I found the manufacturer of freak shoes. Guys, I swear to you, I'd never ever bought a shoe in my life. I did not know that you had to order different size curves. I knew nothing. And I went to the factory and I ordered 3,000 pairs of shoes or 4,000 pairs of shoes. Now, I don't know if you guys know how you order shoes. You basically order them. It takes 4 weeks to make them and 4 weeks to ship them to you on the water, and 10 weeks later, you've actually got your shoes. And so I continue my bachelor lifestyle, and I'm out at Hyde Park, and I'm having coffee. 10 weeks later, my mom phones me. She says, look, there's a 40-foot container outside the house. I'm like, I don't order any 40-foot containers. She says, look, it's got something about shoes. I was like, yes, the shoes have arrived. Okay, tell Daddy to put them in the garage. She's like, you don't understand. This is a residential area, and this truck is outside the house. So I end this meeting, date, whatever you want to call it. I rush home, and I start unpacking shoes into the kitchen, the lounge, the garages, my room. And this girl who was with me helped me unpack the shoes. And when she left, I said to her, here's a pair of shoes. I don't have money, but... And she told her friends about it, and 3 weeks later, I'd sold out of all 5,000 pairs of shoes. So what did I do? I carried on running the business until eventually I realized I'll never ever make R1 billion selling shoes. It's impossible. You have to sell too many shoes. And so I sold the brand, and I moved on in my life. And I got my first job. In fact, the only job I've ever had. I got my first job. I was a stockbroker for 4 months, and because we don't have much time here, suffice to say that this young Jewish guy walks into an Afrikaans firm with an average age of 107 in the shade and starts telling them all what to do. My head was more in buying the business. Their head was more in paying me a salary. And so we parted ways. But the one thing I learned when I was a stockbroker was I used to have these old ladies that used to phone me and say, "Hi, Ran, what is the data share price?" I was like, 44 Rand. So phone me 5 minutes later. "Hi, Ran, what is the data share price?" It's still 44 Rand. And what I realized was that you actually didn't need a stockbroker to execute stock trades. Now, I know today that sounds normal. You go online and you execute stock trades. But in 1998, that didn't exist. In fact, it didn't exist anywhere in the world. So what did I do? I went out onto the market. I raised about 20 or 25 million Rand. I got a team of about 25 developers, and I started to develop a world-first online stock trading. Later on, people like Charles Schwab and E-Trade joined us. I worked on this project for 3 years. And after 3 years, I'll never forget this, the blackest day of my life. 25 developers. I get to the office. There's a padlock on the door. And it says in fancy sheriff language, effectively, that this business is in liquidation. And that if you've got any personal possessions, you can call the liquidator and you can go and fetch them. So called my investor. He said, "Look, I've been meaning to tell you this, but I've gone insolvent. I can't fund you guys anymore." And as a result, our business went insolvent. So I phoned Gil. I said to Gil, "Look, don't come to the office. It's depressing here. Let's meet at a coffee shop." And we went to a coffee shop. And we wrote down on a serviette every single cent that we had, from our bar mitzvah fund to selling our golf clubs to selling our watch. Whatever you wanted, we sold it. We had it. We wrote down the amount of money on a piece of paper. We cashed out. And we paid all the guys that were with us their salaries. And we were left with nothing. If I say to you nothing, I was back living with my parents. My car was remortgaged, and I didn't have $200 for petrol. I was out. It was the most depressing, black period of my life, and not because I lost all my money, but because I lost all my confidence, and I was completely unemployable. The only thing that I had on my CV was I was a failed entrepreneur. Luckily for me, I had a girlfriend. She's great, eh? Luckily for me, I had a girlfriend, and she was doing in-store promotions. And one day I went to visit her in the store. You know what in-store promotions are? It's people standing in the store going, "Hi, ma'am, would you like toothpaste?" Very exciting. I went to visit her in the store, and she wasn't there. And that made me realize that there's this massive gap in in-store promotions because she wasn't there. There were 60 other people in the store, and they were all doing a crap job. And I thought to myself, this is a great industry. And we started the Creative Council. And 15 years later, we sold the Creative Council in the biggest deal in marketing history in South Africa. That happened last year. So, I want to give you guys 5 lessons that I've learned along the way. And I think that if you guys learn or take heed of these lessons, you'll have a much easier ride than I've had. So, the first lesson. How many of you here are entrepreneurs? Hands up. How many of you work in a full-time job? Okay, wait. Let's get this right. You can't be an entrepreneur and work in a full-time job because that's what you call a closet entrepreneur. Okay? So my first lesson to you guys is you've got to come out the closet before you get to that age. Okay? Because he's still trying to be an entrepreneur. You know why you've got to come out the closet? Because the reality is that the way life is structured to give you more responsibility as you grow older. So when you're 18, it's very easy to start a business. When you're 40 and you've got 3 kids, it becomes a little bit more difficult to take the risk. And what people don't actually understand is that the ability to take risk is the best currency in the world. It's more valuable than cattle. Okay? Why is it the best currency in the world? Let me give you guys a bit of a story. That's my mate. His name's Stuart van der Veen. Stuart, despite what he looks like in the picture, is actually the smartest guy you'll ever meet. He doesn't look it, but he really is. Trust me. I know he's somewhere in the audience. He came to me the other night and he said, "Look, I'm running this business of mine, and the business can't pay me enough of a salary. It's paying me a tiny salary. And I think what I want to do is I want to go and work for one of the banks." And I said to him, "Stu, let's do a quick calculation. If you work for a bank for 10 years, how much money are you going to make? And we worked it out, and we said max money he can make if he gets all his bonuses, he'll make 10 million rand. And I said, Stu, what happens if your business succeeds? What will your business be worth? And he said, well, probably a couple of 100 million. And I said to him, well, Stu, you've just answered your own question. Because the ability that you have to take risk is actually the best currency in the world. Now, when you're raising cash for your businesses to start a business, you always think that because you're raising cash, you got the underhand and the guy with the cash has got the upper hand. It's not like that. Now that I have cash and I'm trying to invest, I can't find smart people who are willing to take risks. So the first one is come out the closet. The second one is, just joking, yeah. Fail. I believe that what we should do is we should celebrate failure. So Destiny Magazine, there was an article in Destiny Magazine and we were quoting it. Now, I can't remember saying that, but it actually does summarize what I think about taking risks. Because you've got to fail 4 or 5 times if you're going to keep doing things different. If you do things the same, you're not going to fail, but you're not going to innovate and you're not going to change the world. Now, in South Africa, we have a culture, and our culture is that if you fail, you're shunned. People look at you and go, look, he failed. He's a failed entrepreneur. I don't. I celebrate failure. And in fact, let me tell you, if I see 2 people with the same qualifications and the same business idea, one's failed, one hasn't, I'm going to back the guy that failed every single time. Let me tell you, if I hadn't gone insolvent, if I hadn't failed, there's no way that I'd be here today. The third one. Character is much, much, much more important than wealth. And I'm actually going to define character for you. Character is all the experiences that we go through, particularly during hard times. So we've all been to business school and we've all learned about the hockey stick graph, the one that says that when you start a business, you'll go down, 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 and then what happens is eventually you turn around and you go up. Yeah, we've seen this graph? Now, most people believe that what's important is how much wealth you have and how quickly you can make it. That's wrong. And I'll explain to you why. Any entrepreneur will tell you that this is a day in our lives. It's up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's all up, down in one day. So that graph that I showed you is a whole lot of hogwash, and actually the graph looks something like this. It's jagged and it's broken and it's very, very tough. And then sometime along the way it actually turns. And I call that the point of desperation. Because I think that desperation, people who are desperate, are the best people to back. And I'll tell you guys one other thing. What's important is not how much wealth you have, but all the experiences that you've gone along the way. And that's the shaded area of the graph. And I call that your true wealth. Why do I call that your true wealth? Let me give it to you very simply. There are 2 people on the board there. Mike Tyson and Nate Kirsch. Do you guys know what the similarity is between those 2? They both went insolvent. They both liquidated. Nate Kirsch, at the age of 52, after running a huge supermarket empire, went insolvent. Today, Nate Kirsch is worth $4.1 billion. He started again at the age of 52. The only reason he could do it was because he had character, because he had gone through the character curve. Mike Tyson lost all his money. At one point, he had $440 million. Today, he's got nothing. Lesson number 4. You've got to believe in yourself. I'll tell you a quick story. When I started Creative Council, I approached a gentleman called Alex Moraney and I said, Alex, I need 100,000 rand to start a business called the Creative Council. He wouldn't give it to me. Had he given me 100,000 rand, he would have made 750 million rand on the 100,000 rand that he would have invested in TCC. He didn't believe in me. The truth is, I never believed in myself. Because when you start a business, you always think small and you never believe that you're going to run an empire. And so you make bad decisions. Let me give you one example. I was faced with a decision whether I should hire an FD. There were 2 FDs. One of them was earning 70,000 rand a month, and the other one was earning 100,000 rand a month. Which one did I hire? I hired the 70,000 rand FD. I made a great decision. I saved 30,000 rand times 12 months, that's 360,000 rand. And the FD worked for me for 3 years. I saved the business R1 million. What did it cost me? 5 years later, we ran a forensic audit into our books, and we found out that there was 35 million rand that was unaccounted for. I wish that the experience only cost me 35 million rand. It cost me a hell of a lot more in stuff that I don't know about. And what I'm trying to say to you guys is when you run that small business, you've got to believe that one day you're going to be a giant, and you've got to make decisions as if you're a giant. Because if you don't, they're going to come back and bite you in the arse straight afterwards. The last lesson for us here today is if you are going to be an entrepreneur, you've made a decision to get on a roller coaster, which means you've got to enjoy the ups as much as you enjoy the downs. Yes, you've seen me on the covers of magazines, you've seen me on TV shows, you see me speaking to you guys here today, and you think, wow, this guy's on the top of the mountain. Let me tell you that it took me a long time to climb this mountain with a lot of problems along the way. And tomorrow morning when I get to work, I'm going to be climbing new mountains. What a friend of mine once said to me, he said to me, you know, a roller coaster wouldn't be fun if it only went up or only went down. And so the reality is that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you take that decision and you start enjoying the ups and start enjoying the downs. I didn't. From the age of 25 to 35, all I can remember is bad thoughts. Because instead of having constructive paranoia, which is healthy, what are my competitors doing? I should beat them. I had this thing called paralyzing fear. How am I going to pay salaries? Is my client going to pay? If you're going to get on the roller coaster, you've got to enjoy the ups as well as the downs. So, that's our 5 lessons for tonight. But I think the most important thing is that you be like the dog. And I'll explain to you what I mean. I once asked my business mentor, I said to him, you know, you've seen so many entrepreneurs in your life. Is there one quality that every single successful entrepreneur has that nobody else has? And he said, yeah. And I thought he was going to say a degree, a diploma. No. He said, successful people have a sense of entitlement. They believe that the world owes them something. And so, I once saw a dog chasing a bitch on heat. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, right? But when a dog is chasing a bitch on heat, there's no way that you can get the dog to stop chasing the bitch. You can spray water, you can hit them with a rake, you can do whatever the hell you want. That dog is going. So I say to you guys, be like Mark Sham. Be like me. Be like the dog. Thank you very much. Thank you.